EOS was once a high-flying project where many people thought it was going to beat out Ethereum, but alas, it's pretty much a dead project now. A certified zombie chain in my book, while Ethereum is still firmly in the lead as the most popular smart contracts platform out there. So what does this mean, right? It means that those of you who have drank the Kool-Aid on Tezos, Avalanche, Polkadot, Cardano, Solana, or any of the other layer 1 blockchains out there might need to slow your roll a bit with thinking that they will beat out Ethereum, because I think we can learn something important by visiting the graveyard of EOS, dissecting its demise, and seeing if this new wave of competitors can avoid the same fate. So in this video, I'm going to take you on a trip down memory lane. We'll look at EOS's promising beginnings and everything that went wrong along the way. Then we'll take a step back and analyze what these new blockchains need to do to avoid the same fate. And finally, I'll share my prediction of if any of them can grab the top spot from Ethereum. So if you hold ETH, EOS, or any of those other coins, then you got to watch this video. Strap in, my friend, because it's time for the deep dive. Hey folks, I'm Kevin from BFB, and I gotta say, I love making these types of analysis videos for you. And if you like them too and want to see more, please let me know by giving that like button a quick tap, because that one quick click would help me out immensely. Alright, so for those of you who don't know about EOS or need a refresher, here's a quick overview. They describe themselves as a next generation open source blockchain protocol with industry-leading transaction speed and flexible utility. It was introduced to the world in 2017, and the company behind it is Block One. One key figure was lead developer Dan Larimer, who was already famous for creating Steem and BitShares. They claimed to be the Ethereum killer because it was much more scalable and user-friendly. For example, EOS could handle thousands of transactions per second with Larimer's special distributed proof-of-stake consensus algorithm. Another difference was their zero-fee transactions. Basically, the network was supported through token inflation instead of fees. They also wanted to make it easier for developers to build dApps on top, letting them use existing languages like C++ instead of having to learn Solidity. There's a lot more differences like governance model, address format, and others that I won't dive to in this video. Despite them setting their sights on beating Ethereum, they actually held their ICO on Ethereum, selling an EOS ERC20 token to investors during their historic year-long ICO, through which they raised a record $4 billion at that time. In April of 2018, EOS reached a high point with a $17 billion market cap and sat in the top 5 of all coins. But 3 years later, it has fallen to a price of around $11 at time of shooting, which makes it number 18 overall. Actually, this is pretty funny because while I'm shooting this video, EOS is pumping super hard. But so are Ethereum Classic and Bitcoin Diamond, so even dead coins can rocket for no fundamental reason. One key moment in their history was when the SEC sued them for an illegal token sale, but they settled for just a $24 million fine. That's a slap on the wrist given that they raised $4 billion. Honestly, EOS had all the hype and promise in the world, but now they're essentially a dead project. Let me share with you a few reasons why I think that's the case. First, a lot of interest and activity is moving from the main EOS network to forks of EOS like Telos and Wax. Like you see in this article, gaming dApps that were on EOS are migrating over to Wax because of the problems on the EOS network. Also, if you look at social media data, you'll see that more people are paying attention to Telos and Wax while losing interest in EOS and Block One. Development activity on EOS protocol has also seen an enormous drop since they launched in 2018. A research report by Outlier Ventures shows that the amount of weekly code updates has dropped 94% for EOS as of Q2 of 2020. For a visual of this decrease, you can look at this chart to see how EOS development, denoted by the blue line, dropped even more than other stagnant projects like Tron or Bitcoin Cash. This is not surprising because EOS also had the biggest decrease in active developers, per the same report. One useful tool to view the dApp activity happening on EOS is dApp.com's Compare Blockchain tool that you can see right here. You can actually compare EOS to other blockchains and see how much value is flowing through various types of dApps, whether that's gaming, DeFi, DEXs, etc. I checked out EOS's activity versus Ethereum for DeFi and gaming, And Ethereum's dApps literally have 1,000 times more volume flowing through them on a daily basis. A 2020 study done by the Imperial College of London found that for EOS, barely any real economic activity was happening on their network. Like close to 95% of all EOS transactions carry zero financial value. In fact, there was some random low-cap token called AVAX that would do airdrops and single-handedly clog up the EOS network. At one point, 95% of all EOS transactions were related to this random token, and the rest of the activity was mainly from gambling dApps. This chart is a little bit old, but it's from the Imperial College report, and you can see how the blue wave representing token activity dominates everything else on the network. So while EOS can process thousands of transactions per second, there's really no need because they don't have the on-chain activity to take advantage of it. To make things worse, CTO Dan Larimer resigned from Block 1 just a few months ago in January of 2021. He had always hinted at leaving, but this confirmed people's suspicions because critics had pointed out his track record of abandoning projects. He was a key figure for EOS, so the price dropped 15% shortly after his announcement. Dan mentioned in some interviews that he wanted to focus on building other censorship-resistant technologies, but later posted on Twitter that reports of him leaving EOS are greatly exaggerated and that he's going to continue helping EOS grow towards his initial vision. All of these negatives were also reflected by the price action. Yes, EOS is pumping hard right now, but it's below all-time highs in terms of USD value, and other projects already shot way past previous all-time highs, which should be easy during this raging bull market. If you look at the EOS BTC ratio, it's still near all-time lows and looks like a graveyard. Alrighty, so that's my case for why EOS is dead, but you might be wondering, have they even been doing anything lately? There is some stuff going on, to be fair. Like Google Cloud is going to be one of their 21 block producers. They also updated their resource exchange model, which dictates how people can rent resources to use the network. They're working to improve their staking reward systems, and some people have also released a way to host censorship-resistant websites on EOS. Finally, they're considering a brand new governance model called EOS. This is all great, but honestly, I think it's too late for them because new competitors who have learned from their mistakes have already captured a ton of their market share. So just what were those mistakes that they made anyways? Before we get to that, I want to give a quick shout out to our longtime patrons, Crypto.com. I've been using them for years now, mainly their app to trade coins and their debit card too. But besides that, they have other clutch features like interest accounts and a brand new NFT marketplace. So if you're interested, you can sign up using my link down below to get a $25 bonus. Now, the first huge problem was that EOS's decision-making process, or governance, was a complete mess, and that caused many downstream issues. For example, they had a savings account that accumulated $167 million worth of EOS, and the original plan was to use that to fund dApp development. But the community couldn't agree on how to split the funds, so it ended up just being burned altogether. Sure, that may be good for short-term price action, but they really needed those coins to incentivize builders, and it all just went poof. Besides governance, their block producer system also didn't turn out as expected. It essentially became an oligarchy, which means that the network was controlled by several large players, making it not appealing for smaller node operators to get involved. In fact, EOS has 40% fewer nodes than Tron, which is not a stat to be proud of. Also, a super majority of block producers was from China or other Eastern countries, which created a notable problem because the language barrier and the governance process made it difficult for Western developers and Eastern block producers to get on the same page in terms of how to move the ecosystem forward. Not only that, but because their resource exchange model had issues, it became prohibitively expensive to build on top of EOS. Smaller developers couldn't afford to rent resources to launch their dApps. That's why in July of 2020, only one new dApp appeared on EOS versus 32 on Ethereum. You should take a look at this article from the dev community, which compares the cost of running your dApp on EOS versus its forks, Wax, and Telos. Basically, their analysis shows that resources such as RAM, CPU, and bandwidth are way cheaper on the other two. Block 1 had also promised several times that multiple projects would launch on the EOS blockchain, but their hyped up social network Voice.com ended up launching on their own dedicated version of the EOS protocol. So far, according to CoinDesk, only one Block 1 project is running on the EOS mainnet, which would be Everipedia. All of these mistakes just made the community super fragmented, and many members took the open source tech and built their own alternatives. That's why we saw forks like Telos, Wax, and Boscore all emerge and suck away developers and users from the original network. If I'm to be honest, EOS just didn't have a strong reason to exist. They compromised on decentralization to improve scalability. But then why not just use a centralized ledger instead? Those are super fast already. Remember, EOS was famous for its constitution, for which block producers had to follow in good faith. But doesn't that just defeat the purpose of having a trustless blockchain? This centralization became super apparent when they decided to freeze several hackers' accounts, and then later added that ability to the constitution too. So the power to censor is now straight up written in their constitution. Phew, well, those were just some of the mistakes I found, but the million-dollar question is, what can we take away from all of these lessons? What can newcomers like Tezos, Avalanche, Solana, Polkadot learn so they don't meet the same fate? Because in many ways, you could argue that EOS was the superior technology compared to Ethereum, but yet the two projects are on totally different trajectories. First, you gotta get the governance right because that's mission critical. Be sure to choose a battle-tested governance process, or at least have a backup plan or a way to adjust if problems arise. Next, focus a ton of energy and resources on attracting developers and enabling them for success, because you're not going to reach critical mass and get real traction without projects being built on top. But also, just throwing money at them isn't enough. You got to differentiate your platform in a way that makes sense. You can't just be like, oh, things are clogged on Ethereum, so we're going to make ours faster at the expense of other important aspects. The value proposition of your blockchain has to ultimately make sense for all stakeholders involved, whether that's end users, developers, node operators, and so on. Maybe instead of taking the top dog Ethereum head on, you could also be complementary to them, so you can piggyback off their popularity and grow your initial activity and usage that way. Finally, it's just really evident that money can't buy adoption. EOS had all the funds in the world and it still didn't go anywhere. You can't get complacent and just coast. You gotta stay hyper-focused, be really introspective about whether your design choices make sense, and pivot if things don't go as expected. So ultimately, do I think any of these new competitors will succeed where EOS did not and beat out Ethereum? Not likely, because of Ethereum's enormous head start and network effects. But also, Ethereum can't just get complacent. They have many glaring issues, which is why there are all these competitors popping up. They need to deliver on their ambitious 2.0 roadmap, and it has to work as expected. Honestly, there's a lot riding on their 2.0 upgrade, because that would make them super scalable and remove most of their competitors' advantages. Otherwise, even their network effects won't be enough to save them long term, which we've seen time and time again in the tech world. Big established tech companies with a huge head start still fall to newcomers that really strike a chord. What do you think about all this though? Do you agree with my analysis about EOS? Or are you just laughing at the fact that EOS is pumping like crazy right now as I put out this critical piece? Either way, I'd love to hear your comments down below, and while you're there, if you could give me a quick like, that would be spiffy. I'm Kevin from BFB. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Cheers.